Hey everyone, welcome to the Sunday recap. Last week we were in John chapter 4, verses 1 through 26. We were reading the story of the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman at the well. We're going to go through this very quickly. I want to be as brief as I can just to get you back up to speed. We're going to look at two main things. One is, what does this story reveal to us about Jesus? And the second is, what does this tell me about being a disciple of Christ? So let's get right into it. Look at verse number 1. Now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, he left Judea and departed again into Galilee. So Jesus, who was outside of Jerusalem, realized that the Pharisees were getting upset about him making disciples and baptizing people, and his time had not yet come. So he wanted to take his ministry to another place so he could kind of avoid some of the anger and frustration of the Pharisees until his appropriate time had come. So they decided to leave and go up to Samaria. And he had to pass through Samaria. In verse 5, so he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. So you have the county of Judea, where the city of Jerusalem is. We'll call it a county just for American perspective. And then above it you have Samaria, and then above that you have Galilee. So Jesus had to go from Judea through Samaria up into Galilee. Now, a lot of times the Jews would kind of take this side route because they hated the Samaritans. There is this age-old angst between the two, just this division that was caused from some people of Samaria and the people of Judea. So they would sometimes go around this country or this county in order to get to other places. So there was a lot of division between the two. But Jesus said, no, I'm going to go right through it. I need to get to where I'm going. I'm going to take the fastest route possible. And they even ended up stopping in the city of Sychar in Samaria. So Jesus sent his disciples into town to get some food. And he's weary and he's sitting down at this well. And it's about the 6th hour, which means it was around noon. So the sun is high in the sky. It's very hot. We get this picture of Jesus who is tired. He's been walking. He's He's just kind of exhausted. And let's look what happens in verse 7. A woman from Samaria came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." Now, something crazy is happening here. A lot of things to unpack with this. Number one, women didn't normally come in the middle of the day to fetch water, and they didn't come by themselves. They would come in groups, and they would come either in the evening or early in the morning when it was a lot cooler. And this was a social event. This was where community would connect with each other, and the ladies would talk about the problems in their lives. But here's a single woman coming on her own in the middle of the day. This is a problem. But then Jesus creates some sort of societal problem by saying, "Give me a drink." And let's look at how the woman responds. She says to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria?" For Jews had no dealings with Samaritans. So she's pointing out some of the societal barriers that Jesus is breaking. Number one, a man doesn't just talk to a woman like this. This is not common. Number two, you're a Jew. You don't just talk to me. You think that I'm way beneath you because of your Jewish heritage and because my heritage is sorted with Assyrian nations and false gods. And on top of that, you're asking me for something. You're placing yourself in my debt because you want something from me for free. You're saying, "Give to me a drink." And so she's pointing out all of these societal barriers that Jesus is just bypassing and striking up this conversation with her. And he answers her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." I love how Jesus doesn't even worry about all of the stipulations that are being placed on him and everything that she thinks is important right now about how we're supposed to act in society. He goes to something deeper. He said, if you knew who was talking to you, you wouldn't care about that stuff either. You'd be asking me a different question. You'd be asking me for living water. This is intriguing to the woman. Living water. "Sir, you have nothing to draw the water with, and the well's deep. Where are you going to get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob?" So Jesus is offering living water, but she's kind of assessing him and saying, "You don't have a bucket. You're just some random guy that I met. My heritage is through the lineage of Jacob, and they dug this well, and it's here in our area. And I've got a bucket, and you don't have a bucket. What is it that you're trying to sell me here?" She's going immediately to this material context where she's looking for an actual water. She's doing a literal interpretation of living water, and she's calling Jesus out. How is it that you're going to be able to give me this stuff? Jesus isn't displaced. Look at verse 13. "Everyone who drinks of this water," referring to the well, will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water, welling up for eternal life. This is a big deal. But the woman, she's still trying to get past her literal context. And so he's offered something to her that's starting to feel appetizing and enticing. Water that I don't have to worry about drinking again. Water that I don't have to worry about going to get again. And look how she responds, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw the water from the well." She's still in her earthly mindset, and she's thinking about her societal problems. I don't like coming here to this well in the middle of the day. It's hot. It's a lot of work. I don't like the fact that I have to avoid all of the other women in town because they hate me. I don't like the fact that I'm all alone up here with no one doing this chore. I would love to just have water that I don't have to come up here and get water every single day. I would love to have something that other people are wondering, where do you get your water from? That I have something special. I want Jesus to give me things that take me out of my earthly woes and my earthly troubles. So, sir, give me that drink so that I don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. Jesus has to get a little bit deeper. He's kind of set the hook, right? She's interested now. But he needs to help her understand and get out of this earthly mindset and get to a spiritual understanding of eternal understanding. So he calls her out. Says, "Where's your husband? Go get him and bring him here." Now, she probably would have had her husband with her for safety purposes. They probably would have come at a different time, maybe with another couple. But Jesus was kind of pointing out the obvious, that there was no man to be found with her. And she replies and says to him in verse 17, "I have no husband." And then Jesus does the miraculous. He does the thing that we can't do. He sees beyond the issue. He sees the sin like only God can see. The wearied man sat at the well, but God, the Son of God, the Messiah, shows up and performs a miracle in her life. Not a healing miracle, not some sort of a miracle that can be seen physically, but one of knowledge and understanding that no one else could possess. In verse 17, he says, "You are right in saying you have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one that you have now is not your husband. What you've said is true." The woman is a little shocked by this, and she responds and said, "I perceive that you're a prophet." But then she wants to kind of change the conversation. It seems like she's wrestling with something here, because Jesus is calling her out on her sin. And so there's some conflict within her, and she's expressing it here in verse 20. "Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say," and she's referring to Jews, "that you say in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." In a way, what she's saying is, okay, you're calling me out of my sin, but what am I to do about it? Because even if I worship here, you'll still say, well, I'm not worshiping in the right place. But then I'm a Samaritan, so I'm rejected in Jerusalem anyhow. And there's just kind of throwing up of her hands and going, you know what, either way I lose. I'm a victim in this situation, and there's no right way out of it. Jesus responds with a picture of hope. He gives her this piece of living water that she's been asking for without even knowing. He says, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must," that's an important word, "must worship in spirit and truth." Now the woman is thinking, is this really true? Can this really be true? Like the stipulations of which mountain I have to be on and what things and protocols I have to follow are not needed anymore? Will I be able to find forgiveness and peace and rest in my soul for the sins that I've committed? She came to get water, and she's being fed this living water and not able to believe that this could actually be true, that she could find redemption. And so she goes to the one source that she knows will bring redemption, and she responds in verse 25, "I know Messiah is coming. When he comes, he will tell us all these things." She has this expectation of the Messiah. Weary Jesus, man, sat down at the well, and Messiah shows up. And we find out that this woman has been waiting for the Messiah. And if she could just talk to him, her soul would be lifted up. And he responds and says, "I who speak to you am he." her life is instantly transformed. Everything starts to make sense now. No one else could have known her history of husbands and the struggle that she's having. No one else would dare cross these social barriers. No one else could use words like living water, welling up of springs of water for eternal life. It all makes sense to her now. This shows us the character of Jesus, that he would go after those that society has cast out to the side, that he would jump over societal barriers and hurdles to connect intimately with those who are seeking after him. This picture, it defines who Jesus is, that he loves in that fashion. And he's always calling her into something more. Everything we see, these twists and turns in the conversation, Jesus is moving her in an eternal perspective direction. He doesn't stop and debate on the literal. He doesn't get into the history of Jacob and how he is from the lineage of Abraham. And he doesn't discuss, well, that was for a time to worship in Jerusalem, and this was, you're worshiping on this mountain for these other circumstances. No, he goes right above that because he is the fulfillment of all things that were written before him. And he is only concerned about calling her into the fullness of the gospel that he came to bring. So what does that tell us to do? Who's your Samaritan? Who is that person in your life that there are things between you that make you not want to interact with them? Is it a neighbor? Is it someone that's always commenting about the state of the neighborhood or how somebody's house is in disrepair? Maybe it's a little bit less personal than that. Maybe you're in an environment where you're standing around someone who's doing something annoying. Maybe you're in a crowded room and there's somebody who's smoking. Maybe it's somebody at work that you're encountering that always does things in a fashion that just kind of get under your skin. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a spouse. Can we see past those issues? I mean, this certainly applies in today's age with all the political conflict we have and all the societal conflict that we're having. Can we see past those issues and get to the eternal solution of Jesus Christ? That's what needs to be done for us. Think about that Samaritan in your life, someone that you have conversations with, and think about what it is that they may really be longing for. They may be longing for friendship. They may be longing for community, for peace, for some compassion. And if we respond to them on the level that they are attacking us with, we'll never get there. But when we do what Jesus does, when we see past the surface issue to the depth of what is happening in their soul, and we call them into living hope, we offer them that living water, then we can help people to see that Jesus really is the answer for their struggles. He really is the fulfillment and satisfaction in life. Just as he says he is, that he is sufficient. So I want you to think about that as you go. Think about who's the Samaritan in your life, or who you might be a Samaritan to, and how you can instead turn it around and be like Jesus in your interactions with those people. I hope you're caught up. Go back through and read this. We're going to continue on with what happens with the woman at the well as she goes and tells everybody what's been going on. Next Sunday, we're going to get into the rest of chapter 4. Hope you're having a great week. Look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.